Hey guys, we are live here. Zach Ginn here with a $50,000 wholesale deal case study with Dan Brault. Dan is out of Rochester, New York. Probably saying this wrong, but he is here to really share how he made $50,000 on one wholesale deal. I know we do a video day here at Flip It Direct, so you're sick of hearing from me. So I'd rather get someone who does deals not in Florida or any of the virtual markets I do. And really, he's in my opinion, a pretty tough state to do wholesaling. So it's really interesting to see guys making $50,000 in tough states, saturated markets per se, and really get an in-depth look on his business. And honestly, I'm going to unveil the curtain to help you understand how he got that deal, how his acquisitions is on that deal, how he got such a great price, and lastly, how he sold it, and most importantly, how you can do the same thing. So thank you so much for coming on today, Dan.
Zach, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
All right. So let's get this going out of the beginning here. Let me know what's going on with that deal. What happened and kind of how are the moving parts going with it?
Yeah, so this one came through text message marketing when that was still working up here. So it was really hot for a while. That got oversaturated, so it stopped working as well. But got that one through a vacant high equity list that I pulled. I used batch skip tracing to contact him. This one, it was going on for a while. It was, we had set up an appointment. He didn't show. He ghosted me for like 3 weeks, set up another appointment. He didn't show again, ghosted me for another month or so. And this went on for about 4 months. But through just consistent follow-up, I was finally able to get him to commit to a time and show up to the house. And at this point, it was just about solving his problem. Because if you're all about price or you're thinking about your needs first, you're never going to get to the pain that you need to get to find their true motivation to get the pricing you need to. And so this one, amazing. This guy had held this property for 7 years. It's been vacant for 7 years. He bought it as a flip. He ran out of money midway through and then just let it sit, never did anything with it. And so he was at the point where he was just stuck. He needed the money. He just wanted to be done with it, wanted to walk away. The house had really fallen apart. I mean, he put $80,000 into it and then just let it sit. Then a tree fell on the roof. There was holes in it. There was mold everywhere. So he was in a world of hurt, and thankfully we were able to strike a deal.
All right. So there's a lot to unpack here. But before we're getting some people hopping on, what's up, guys? Thanks, Lucien, for coming on. Can you introduce yourself really quick and kind of a little bit about who you are? So now we know you got a pretty interesting $50,000 deal, kind of tree situation going on. So who is Dan?
Yeah, so I'm an investor and father and personal development junkie up here in Rochester, New York. Been investing for about 5 years, started with flips and rentals. And then when I started, I didn't even know what wholesaling was. I found out about it because I bought a couple of properties from these individuals and saw these big assignment fees and wanted to know what they were doing, wanted to know how I could avoid paying those fees, and just started educating myself, started reading as many books as I could read, watching stuff online, interviewed as many investors as I could find in my local market. So just try to learn as much as I could. And then still for the next 4 years was really only wholesaling part-time, just on the side when I had a deal that I didn't want to flip or hold as a rental. Only until really about 7-8 months ago did I really start wholesaling full-time, and where that's been my sole focus. And since then, it's really taken off.
Oh, wow. Okay. And just a little information about New York. So what are some of the things you need to know before you start wholesaling New York? Because I know if an 18-year-old kid goes out, puts it on a contract with a seller, they're screwed. So can you let us know how do you really wholesale in that state?
So one of the big things about New York is that one, it's an attorney state. And so some people might know there's two different kind of states. There's an attorney state and there's a title state. A title state is generally preferred because things can move a lot quicker. But New York is just infamous for moving pretty slow. So you have to go, everything has to go through attorneys. The 1, 2, 3 week closes that can happen in other states never happen here. I mean, it's going to take at least 2 to 3 months to get a close up here. So it's just a lot slower. And there's a lot of attorneys up here that won't work with you if you're a wholesaler, if you don't have your real estate license.
Yeah.
So I personally have my real estate license just for investing purposes. Otherwise, if you don't, they'll pretty much force you to double close.
Yeah. And do you need the actual attorney to sign? So for someone new, do you need an attorney at the actual appointment, or can you get it after it?
So they don't need to be at the appointment. All of our contracts have attorney approval contingencies. So what that means is that my attorney has to approve the agreement and the seller's attorney has to approve the agreement. And that's generally within 3 to 5 days after signing.
Okay. And the reason I bring that up is, would an attorney, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but a lot of them do have fiduciary responsibility. So is there an issue with this $50,000 wholesale deal where the actual seller's attorney says, hey, this deal is a little too good for the buyer? Do you have that issue at all? And how did you get around that with such a great spread on this?
Thankfully, I don't run into that. I make it very clear. So part of my process is it's not about the price. I'm there to solve a problem. And so the sales method that I use, it's very systematized so that when we go through the motivation or pain funnel, whatever you want to call it, we get to the true problem that they're facing, why they're in this situation, what sort of difficulties and challenges it's causing, how they feel about that. Ultimately getting to that point where you get that true emotion behind it, that's when we go into price. And at that point, they're just thinking about the problem that we're there to help them solve. They're not focused on the price. So the price just becomes a reflection of the problem that you're solving. And so at that point, the attorneys at that point are almost a formality. They're just there to make sure that there's nothing sneaky in the contract and that the seller just knows what they're signing is pretty much it.
Okay. So I just say that because I deal with probate situations where I have attorneys try to take down the deal themselves, but that's Florida for you. So, okay. So you made $50,000. So you did it through SMS texting. So what is the ad copy you're using to get those deals?
Ooh, man, we've switched those up all the time. So we're not doing SMS marketing anymore. At that point, we used a lot of just little messages that would grab people's attention. Yeah. And the thing about SMS marketing is, and now even more so, is that they're blocking words all the time. So you have to constantly change it up. So at that point, it was probably something along the lines of, you're probably not the owner of this property, are you? And it's not saying anything about, I want to buy the house. It's not saying anything like that. It's just looking for the owner. And then they might say, oh, what's going on? Or something going on with the house, or so they don't know. So something like that, where it's not specific to, hey, I'm an investor, I want to buy your house, here's a cash offer. Your response rate is going to be so low on those. So if you just open up with something sort of general, looking for a contact, you're going to get a lot higher response rate. And so I'm pretty sure that's the type of message we used on that one.
Okay. And going from there, you got the message. So from there, how did you transition it with a conversation over to getting an appointment and an actual deal?
Mm-hmm. So we try to transition to the phone as soon as we can. So after they've engaged you 2 or 3 times, when they've responded 2 or 3 times, we just call them right away. So you're never going to have a really great conversation just through text, because there's no tonality. It's really hard to gauge the meaning of things because it's just text. And so we try to get them on the phone really early on. So we were thankful enough or lucky enough on this one where after about 2 messages back, we gave him a call, he picked up. And then we go through our standard script. We have our upfront agreement where we make it very clear of what this call is for, what the purpose of it is, how long it's going to take, and if we do decide to move forward, what it would look like in the next steps. And so everyone's very much on the same page. It's not a hard close. Everyone knows exactly what to expect. And then after that, we push it over to our acquisitions team. They set the appointment. He didn't show. So then there was a period of about 4 months of follow-up trying to get him to actually show up, which, I mean, that's the thing, is that follow-up is everything in this business, because so many deals will happen after 30 days, after 45 or 60 days. That's a lot of times what separates the really successful people from those who are just doing 1, maybe 2 deals a month and just getting by, between the ones that are suddenly doing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus deals a month. A lot of those are from leads that came in a couple months ago.
Okay. And so fortune's the follow-up, obviously. So what was the situation on actually getting everything locked up and actually when he was ready after those 4 some months?
So right now, I'm doing all of our appointments are in person in this market because we're just in Rochester right now. So everything's in person, and we do a signed agreement right when we're there at the appointment. So the paperwork's ready. As soon as we go through that pain funnel and get that price agreement, we come to terms on what the next steps are going to be. And the agreement is ready right there. And I go through the whole thing, making sure they fully understand what they're signing, and execute the full agreement, scan it to both the attorneys and the seller. And at that point, there's not much else except waiting for title work and survey to get done, and then finally closing.
Okay. So specifically on this deal, obviously you or your acquisitions member went on there. What were the numbers like? So what was the actual contract price, and was your first contract price you actually offered accepted? Like, what was the negotiations? For a lot of people coming on here, they've only dreamed of doing $50,000 on a deal. So I think opening up on the actual acquisition side would be really big for them too.
Yeah. So in regards to the price, like I said before, the number one thing that I can say for getting a good price is the price is a reflection of the problem that you're solving. So if someone doesn't have pain, if someone's not motivated, you're not going to convince them to give you wholesale pricing. It's just not going to happen. So this process, wholesale deals aren't for most sellers. They just don't qualify. And so you need to make sure you're actually talking to the right people first. I see a lot of people making that mistake early on, is that they try to qualify everybody and try to sell to everyone instead of actually weeding out the people that don't make sense for this process and actually talking to people that are worth the time. So that's number one. When I got him through the pain funnel, make sure he was fully qualified. He wanted something like 70,000 or 75,000. And I do a very open-ended pricing question. I say, so if someone were to offer you X, what would happen next? And just leave it there and see what they say. And so I offered him, it was 40 to 45. And so I said, I didn't offer. I said, what would happen if someone were to offer you 40 to 45,000? He said, well, I was hoping for more than that. I said, okay, so what were you hoping I would say? He said, well, maybe at least 60,000. Okay, so I'm at 45, you're at 60. What do you think we can do to bridge that gap? And he's, and then they'll say something like, well, we could meet in the middle. And I said, okay, so if I could come up to, let's say 50, what would happen then? And he said, then I'd sell it. And I said, okay, so for me, like I had shared with you earlier, the next step would be to put it in writing. And he said, okay, let's do it. And so it's a soft close. I mean, at that point, if you're not, for me, it's not a hard close, because if you're there trying to convince them, those are the people that are going to call you back the next day and cancel. So there's no pressure. It needs to work for both sides. And keep in mind that price conversation is generally, for me, very short. Where I spend the most time is on the pain conversation, figuring out what their actual problem is and how we can solve that. Then we transition quickly into the price, so they still have that problem on top of their mind.
Okay. And are you doing more of like pain discovery or rapport building when you're on these appointments?
For me, rapport building. So since I'm actually going to these appointments, I build rapport through asking good questions, responding appropriately. So I'm actually listening to what they're saying. I'm not just going through a script. I'm actually listening appropriately and then responding appropriately. And then when we're just walking through the house as I'm taking photos, that's when I'll just talk. We'll just have conversations. I'll ask them about their life. So that's when I'm doing rapport building, but I'm not really taking a whole lot of extra time. And so a lot of people I know subscribe to the thought of, well, you need to spend 10, 15 minutes just building rapport. I don't necessarily agree with that for my style. So everyone has their own style. A lot of different styles work. I think that they're there to solve a problem, and they want to know if you can help them. So when we're asking good questions and we're getting to the point, then they are feeling more comfortable. They're going to be more open. And it's just that, to me, builds rapport. So rapport is just a connection and mutual understanding between two people. And so when they feel understood, you're going to have that connection and rapport. And that's when they'll open up. It doesn't need to be about sports or the weather. That doesn't build rapport, in my opinion.
Okay. And I see there you do. I mean, obviously people are loving your stuff. I mean, this stuff's absolute gems. So guys, if you're getting any value, comment below, like anything or any questions you have, because Dan will break this whole stuff down. This stuff's pretty important. This is like a little $500,000 course right here that we're just giving out. So we got some fire. People are loving it. We got some questions too. We'll answer at the end here. But so I'm seeing you're really doing a soft close here, which is something I do sometimes. And then unfortunately, I'm in an insane market where if I don't get this thing signed, there's 5 appointments coming tomorrow. So you're in a pretty competitive market, I would say. There's some other, I would say, big players there. Obviously, you're pretty good on there. When do you know when to do the soft close? And like when you're negotiating here, like when you were there, do you know how much you would be able to sell it for wholesale wise at that appointment? Like what was your number there?
Yeah, I always have a pretty good idea. So I run all my comps prior to the appointment. So I always know what I'm going in at. It might change a little bit based on if I find something that I didn't expect, but I'm always there prepared to make my final offer. And when I go to the appointment, like I said, I set a strong upfront agreement. So I say, look, when I'm at these appointments, my goal is to buy a house. So today I'm either looking for a yes or a no. Either one's totally fine. And if I hear anything other than a yes, I'll just take it as a no. And I say that for 2 reasons. One is that in my experience, 99% of the time, if someone says, let me think about it, what they really mean is no. And they're just trying to be nice and not hurt my feelings. The other reason is if you come back to me in 2 or 3 months and say, hey, can you still buy my house? I can't guarantee I still can. I might have something else going on. I might have some big projects. I don't know. I know that right now I could. In a couple months, I'm not sure. So today, I'm either looking for a yes or no. Either one is totally fine. And they always say, okay. And I just make that very clear so that when we get to that price conversation and I say, I'm looking for a yes or a no, they know that's what I'm there for. So it doesn't have to be a hard close because I set that understanding up front. So right then and there, that sort of takes away the need for me to hard close because they already know what to expect.
Okay. Are you conditioning yourselves at all before the appointment?
In what way?
Like a John Martinez style, like, hey, if I come at your house at 4 p.m., will you be ready to make a decision on if you're going to sell it, yes or no?
I don't say that.
Okay.
One, I avoid the word decision at all costs. I'll say, so the only time where I use anything similar to the word decision is when we're talking about other people. So is there anyone else that would have an impact that this would impact? Is there anyone else that would have a say in the sale of this property? Does anyone else have veto power? But so I try to be as different from every other salesperson that they come across. So I avoid the word decision when I'm talking with them and I call them. I don't ask them how they're doing. And I tell my leads managers not to do that either. Because anytime you get a cold call, what do? Hey, how you doing today? Yeah. Oh, well, okay. Right off the bat, you're like, all right, this is probably a cold call. I don't know you. So if you're acting like everyone else, you're going to get the same results as everyone else. So I set the agreements when I'm there. So my team, we set an agreement when we're on the phone with them the first time. We say, this is what this call's about. This is how long it's going to take. If we move forward, this will be the next step. If not, that's no problem either. And then when I get to the appointment, I do the exact same thing.
Okay. And since you got under contract for 50, obviously you knew you could make a pretty good penny doing it. Do you ever get like, I don't know, giddy or excited when you're dealing with it? Like someone tells you the price, you're like, oh my gosh, like inside, like how do you internally like hold that in? Because training acquisitions people, I had to go on appointments with them, you know, we could sell it for 80 and the guy's like 30 and then we sign it at 40 and like my acquisitions person's like shaking. Yeah. Like, how do you control that feeling? Because I've been in so many times, it's hard to explain being there, but like these people here, obviously when you say a price like that, it just comes out. So like, how do you control that?
Practice. A lot of practice. I mean, there's tactics. So what I always say is you want to practice when you're not in front of the prospect, in front of the prospect. So role play as much as you can. Everyone hates role playing. It's terrible. But you know what's worse is messing up in front of the prospect and losing the deal because of it. So practice like a pro. You look at professional athletes. They practice 97% of the time and play 3% of the time. And out here in this industry, how often are people actually practicing? Not a fraction of that. And those that do, those are the ones that are dominating because they're drilling those fundamentals. I mean, look at any historically successful coach like Vince Lombardi. He drilled the fundamentals with professional athletes, guys that have been doing this their entire life, and they know this stuff, but they still drill it every single day because that is what wins you championships. That's what gets you to 7-8 figure businesses, not all the fancy tricks. It's being able to do 1, 2, 3 things really, really well, not being able to do 100 things moderately well.
Definitely. So I go after the 10,000 hour rule with everyone when getting really good with someone, but I definitely see that. So practice is everything there. So you get it locked up, $50,000. What are the steps after? So when you're at that appointment, I'm really curious in your business, do you tell the seller, like, you're going to say, this is what's going to happen next? Like, what's the process for you to make sure that you got the great deal, but you got to keep the deal? So what's the process for you?
Yeah. So as soon as we're done signing the paperwork, I say, all right, so here's what's going to happen next. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to scan this in. I'm going to send a copy to you and your attorney and my attorney. Your attorney's going to talk it over with you. They'll give you a call, make sure you understand everything, and they'll get your okay to submit their approval. After that, within the next 14 days, what I like to do, I say within the next 14 days to allow for scheduling flexibility. And really what that is for, that's my inspection period.
Yeah.
That allows me to have 2 weeks to find buyers that are interested enough, that want to go see it. And then I also have a 1 week period after that where I can approve or disapprove of that inspection. So I really have 3 weeks to sell this contract. So I say at some point within the next 2 weeks, I'd like to bring my contractors through so that we can do a walkthrough, start getting some estimates so that when this thing closes, we're just ready to go. And so sometimes I'll say I'll either bring some financial partners or some contractors, and they never have a problem with it. Yeah. So I think as long as you don't make a big deal about it, they're not going to make a big deal about it. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up on going through the contract or things like that, is they'll focus on certain parts of it too much, and it'll draw attention to that area where you don't want attention drawn. Like you go over the deposit. Some people are putting down $100 deposits. I don't even touch on that part. If they ask about it, sure, I'll go over it. And they'll say, oh, do I have to pay that? And I say, oh, no, we're covering that. That's on us. And they'll say, oh, okay. And then we go past it. So for me, as long as you don't act like it's a big deal, it doesn't have to become one. But going back to the next step, so then I say, and after that, then it just goes to the attorneys. They'll take care of the title work and the survey. They really do all of that. At that point, there's really not a whole lot that you or I need to do. It's sort of just a waiting game. I'll keep you updated when there's anything significant happening. And then once closing comes, a few days before, you'll go in and sign your paperwork, sign off on all the final numbers. The day before or the day of, we'll go in and sign ours. Money will be transferred. A couple days later, your attorney will send you your funds, and that's it.
I mean, it's so important telling the seller what's going to happen, because uncertainty, I mean, they're taking a cash offer because of certainty. So yep. You not being certain after that's going to kill them. Definitely some great gems. But so we're telling the seller what to do. So next after that, we got the cash buyer. And this is where a lot of people get really caught up in stress. So 14 days, that stresses me out because we're kind of at 30 days. So how do you find the cash buyer? Obviously, I mean, the volume you have a good cash buyers list, but for this specific deal, how did that all go down?
So I think it's super important to be marketing for cash buyers constantly, because there's people leaving the buying industry. There's people coming in. So you want to constantly be catching those new people and building those relationships. So for me, one of the first things I do, I post it on social media. And anytime that I meet a new investor, I say, hey, go follow me on Instagram. I post a lot of my new deals there if I don't already have them sold. And so that's number one. Then I can post them. People are checking. Then they message me. Then there's, in pretty much any city, you're going to have Facebook groups for just real estate investors. There are probably more than one. You can post deals on there, and other people are posting stuff on there too. And other people will comment on those posts and put their phone numbers, their email addresses. You can grab all that stuff or message those people individually and start up conversations. See what their buying criteria is. See if they're in the market, what kind of volume they do. Be building those relationships and constantly adding to that buyer's list. And then, you can post on Craigslist. You can be looking on the MLS for agents who work with investors. So you can look at recent flips and see who was the agent representing the flipper. Or on the front side of it, if you see a distressed property, who was the agent that represented the buyer? And then you contact them and say, hey, I have this deal, this off-market wholesale deal in this area. I see you work with investors. Do you have any buyers that are looking for something like that? So there are a lot of ways to find buyers nowadays.
Okay, so on this specific one, where did you find this buyer?
This buyer was a previous relationship with me that I had. This guy probably buys 10 to 15 properties a year from me.
Wow.
So he was one of the first guys that I learned about wholesaling from because I bought a property off him.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Tables have turned. So you did that one. So it's really interesting because there's a lot of YouTubers out there that'll tell you, find the cash buyer, give them the price, that's it. But no one really walks through the mechanics. So you're bringing the cash buyer through, they see the property. How do you bring up price? Because price is very sensitive to the seller, but with a buyer, you got to be very careful also. So how does that specifically go down in your business?
So I price my properties to make sure that in my market, that my buyers always get their minimum threshold for profit. And in my market, for a flip, it's usually at least $20,000 is what they're going to want to make. If the rehab is really involved, they're going to want to make more than that. So I price it out to make sure that that's where they're going to be at after all costs included. So when I send out a property, I do two things. One, I don't just blanket it out to everybody that I know. I will ask a specific question, like, or just say something like, hey, I have a new property in 14615 zip code near this and this intersection. It's a single family home, 3-bed, 1-bath, 1,400 square feet. And if they respond asking for more information, then I will send photos and a PDF with all the property information. So in there, I try to get really detailed photos, every angle. So I stand in the corner of the room, hold the camera, chest height, shoot straight ahead, try to get a wide angle, stand on multiple corners per room to get people a really good idea of what they're going to walk into, because they're going to find out one way or another. So you might as well show them everything up front and not waste people's time. So I give them really good photos, and then pretty much like a full property condition disclosure statement. Essentially, I talk about the age of the roof, the age of the windows, the age of the HVAC, all that stuff. I break it all down, what needs fixing, what doesn't, everything in one document. And then the price is just right on top of there. And sometimes people will negotiate. Sometimes they'll just say, I'll take it.
Okay. And so on this one, what were you advertising the price as?
This one I was at 115 and then ended up selling it at 100.
Okay. And how did that negotiation go down? So the guy, like, I'm not going to pay 115. Like, how did that specifically go?
So this property had a fair amount of mold in it. And so with that, yeah, I mean, it was everywhere. So it was pretty much a full gut. And so when you get into those more involved projects, the buyer pool just shrinks. And so you're not going to have newer flippers or investors, guys that just want to do cosmetic stuff. They're out automatically. And so you sort of have to know that going into a bigger project. So I priced that a little aggressively, but at the end of the day, I knew this thing was going to be worth at least $250 when it was done. And so I priced it where I knew that they would make a good amount of money. I mean, he'll probably make at least $60,000 on the flip. And so I priced it a little aggressively because that's just sort of my natural style, is a little bit more aggressive. And it wasn't too much of a negotiation. I had a couple other guys through that. One came at 95. The other one was also at 100, but he wasn't, I had never worked with him before. and the other one came in at the same price, but I had worked with him many times before. So for me, I'm going to pick the reliable guy.
Yeah. I mean, that you can't beat it. I mean, with a mole property like that, I mean, I've dealt with a couple of them. You got to take your heavy flippers on there.
Yep.
You don't want to risk it. So how many buyers did you bring through that house?
I brought through 4.
Oh, wow. And my question for you is, are you telling the seller it's like 4 rehabbers going through, or I mean 4 like contractors, or do you have like a different name for everyone? Like what's kind of your process?
Yeah, I just say they're either contractors or financial partners.
Jeez, 4 is a lot for me. That's crazy. So do you ever hit a limit where it's like, hey, after like 6, we're kind of.
Oh yeah. So it depends. So this one, thankfully, it was vacant and it was open. And so I could go anytime. Like it was literally just unlocked.
Wow.
So that's a lot easier. So, but typically I'll limit it to 2 people, usually 2 or 3. And the way I do that is I'll say, look, I'm only going to be bringing 2, maybe 3 serious investors through this property who already know that they want it and just want to walk it to confirm. Does that sound like what's going on here? And right off the bat, that weeds out the tire kickers.
Oh yeah.
So for me, it just gets the serious guys in there. And I just make sure, like, you already know you want it, and now you just want to walk through it to confirm what you already know. Does that sound like what's going on here? And that's worked really well for me.
Definitely. So you found that cash buyer, did the assignment. Do you use an attorney when you do the assignments too?
Yeah. So sometimes my buyer can use the same attorney as me, which I prefer. Sometimes they like to have their own. In those cases, it gets a little messy because then there's 3 attorneys on one deal. And the more attorneys, the worse. So on that one, there were 3 attorneys on that deal.
Wow. And looks like you finally closed and you got your check. I mean, any other details about this deal that you want to share that, you think someone, especially newer or wanting to get into this, would probably benefit from?
Keep following up. I mean, if you already paid for the lead, if you've gotten in touch with them and they haven't yet sold the property or told you to stop contacting them, you need to keep contacting them, because you never know. Even if they said, you know what, I'm not ready to sell this thing, or I don't want to sell it right now. People's situations change. It can change pretty drastically. So, I mean, look at what happened through COVID and all the landlords who suddenly aren't collecting rent and now just want out.
Oh yeah.
A few months before that, they were perfectly happy with all their rental properties. They didn't want to sell any of them. But now you get a large amount of people that are just done because now they're behind on their taxes or their mortgage and they just want to be done. And so you never know what's going to happen to people's situations unless you ask. And so do it in a professional and friendly way, but find ways to stay in touch with these people, because if you're not contacting them, then your competition is.
Ooh. I guess another question. So guys, before we get into any questions from you guys or me, please comment below anything you got for Dan, and comment below anything. Again, smash that like button and subscribe. But my question about you, since you just brought up competition, what is the reason that you got that deal versus anyone else in your market?
So for me, like I said, I try to differentiate myself as much as I can. Mm-hmm. So up here, I focus on running a professional organization that's always getting better. So a little bit better each and every day, that compound effect, where if we can be getting a little bit better at something each day, we're going to be miles ahead of the competition that's just trying to do the same thing every day. So between constantly getting better, putting the right people in the right seats, so that it's not just about having the right people on your team, but if you have the right people on their team, but they're doing the wrong things, they're not going to be successful and they're going to burn out. So getting A players on your team, but then putting those A players in the right positions. So that is key. So setting people up for success, constantly working on your business and actually treating it like a business. So this, anyone who's super successful in wholesaling or really anything, they treat it like a business because that's what this is. Sure, this can be a hobby for people. You can do one deal every few months if you're just sort of doing it on the side. Sure, you can absolutely do that. But if you want this to be your ticket to building generational wealth, you need to treat it like a real business because that's what it is. And so learning how to set up a business, learning from people who have done what you're trying to do and emulating their success. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of people that are willing to share their advice through books, podcasts, seminars, coaching. There's a lot of ways to learn. And what's, I think, most important is not just taking the education that's out there, but actually acting on it. Because so many people, they'll just get stuck in YouTube University and they'll just be consuming information constantly, but they don't actually do anything with it. So they get stuck because they're constantly trying to learn the next best thing and being 100% ready. But you know what? You're never going to be 100% ready. No matter how much you study, no matter how much you learn and prepare, you will always make mistakes, no matter what. So just get used to making mistakes, learn from them, try not to make them again, and just take action at each and every day.
Wow. I mean, that's why your Instagram handle's got action in it, right?
Great.
Sweet, man. So let's get some questions here. I mean, that was awesome. Lucian says, first, what's up? Got some fire on this. Yo, 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 what's up? Bill asks, Dan, do you do any creative deals subject to or owner financing?
I do. So I'm not going to say a lot because it's not my specialty. I'm working on learning that stuff. But I'm actually working on, it would be a sub 2 for actually my own personal home. Nice. And so working on, me and my wife are going to go over there on Tuesday to check it out. But yeah, so we do a small amount. That is sort of my next frontier because I know that when you open up the creative financing world, you can pretty much double your conversion from leads to prospects.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And let's keep going. Let the lemon drop. This guy's negotiating tactics are incredible. Sweet, sweet, sweet.
Thanks,
texting nuggets was fire. Great stuff. This is great stuff. Thanks, Zach, for going live again and bringing the goods again. Thank you, Dan. Practice like a pro. Sweet, man. Yeah, we're trying to go live twice a week now, but still videos every day. Don't worry. Quantel, love the books in the background. Sweet. Important question here. Did you read all those books?
Yes.
Woo.
Dude, I try to read every day, and with 2 kids under 2 years old, it can be, well, 2.5 and 4 months old. It gets a little busy, but I do try to read every single day. I think I read 55 books last year. But that, like I was saying, learn from the people who've had that success before you. And a lot of those people have written books. And one thing I've started doing recently, I actually put a post out on my Instagram today about it, was, so I'm a big fan of writing in books, highlighting, underlining, dog-earing, everything, so that I can refer to that later. What I found was after it goes on my shelf, sometimes I'll forget about it. I won't pick it up again. So what I've been doing is I scan those pages in, I send those off to a VA, and everything that I've underlined, highlighted, bracketed, they type that up into a whole new Word document. Nice. They send that back to me, and then it's all digital. I can use that for training, for referencing in the future. I can access it anywhere. And so they'll end up writing up like 35 full pages of notes that I've underlined and highlighted, and it's like $15. I mean, it totally worth it.
Oh, definitely. Stuff's good stuff right there. My guy Rick, I mean Zach, sweet, sweet, sweet. I just peeped that Zach just started following Zach less than 24 hours ago. Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it. Bill says, if you don't do text anymore, what is your primary marketing?
Mm-hmm. So when I was making that transition, for me, I like to run a lean team. And personally, if anyone is familiar with predictive index, I'm a venturer. If anyone's familiar with EO or EOS or the traction book or any of those, like Get a Grip, Rocket Fuel, any of those. So I'm classic visionary. And so for me, like, I hate managing people. That's actually one of the reasons why I got out of flipping, is because I hate managing contractors so much.
Don't get me started with that.
And so for me, I wanted to get to a method of marketing that was less involved with people management. And so I've actually been, since September, my main form of marketing is TV, and it's been incredible.
Wow. That's absolutely amazing. Maybe we should do a podcast soon about it. Jacquez says, when it comes to wholesaling, what is the best entity structure to have so you can protect yourself? What do you think?
So I can't speak in terms of legally. I'm not an attorney. So don't take this as legal advice. This is just what I do. So I just have an LLC. Limited liability corporation. And so my LLC is the purchasing entity on all of these contracts. It's not Dan Brault. It's my LLC, whichever one I'm using. So that is what I know most people do. If you're talking about flipping or if you're talking about holding properties or flipping, I know some people will choose to only have a certain number of properties per LLC to limit their liability there, because as soon as one, let's say one LLC gets sued, the only other properties that are in risk are the other properties that are within that LLC. Any other LLCs are completely free. So as far as your original question, wholesaling entity, I use an LLC.
Boom. Easy as that. I go S Corp because I'm in Florida. If you're under 150 to 300, but we're at C Corps right now just because that's our volume. And then obviously we get into sub twos and stuff. We talk about trusts, but I'm not a lawyer. So Barshawn says S Corp or C Corp. Find your state. I'm in a state with no income tax. Dan's in a different one. So definitely talk to your attorney or whatever. So I really appreciate you coming on today, Dan. Can you share where people can go find you and just more information about if someone wants to go see what you do? Obviously, I did not go through everything in his business. I'm going to have to take some hours getting on him on a podcast soon about it all. So if you want to see him on a podcast, comment yes or no. Love to see his whole business. The TV thing's interesting, but how can people get in touch with you, man?
Yeah, Zach, thanks for having me again. Best way to reach out to me is on Instagram at Action Dan Bro, my handle right there. Action Dan Bro, spelled B-R-O. And anything you guys have, be happy to share, reach out. I'm always here to help people out. I mean, I got a lot of help getting to where I am, and I'm here to help too. So reach out.
Boom. I really appreciate it. Do you have any parting thoughts before we end it?
Man, if I didn't have this before my name, then I wouldn't be living up to it. So I got to say, just guys, take action. Any action is better than no perfect action. So you can say, well, you can wait till you're 100% ready until you have the perfect plan, or you can just go out there and take action and learn from it and constantly adjust and get better each and every day. So yes, you need to be learning constantly, but don't just learn to learn. Learn to improve and take action on it. So if there's something here that you guys learned today that was valuable, take action on it tonight. Take action on it tomorrow. And then hit me up on Instagram and hit up Zach and let us know how that went for you. Because that's why we're doing this. We're here to help. We want to see you win. We want to see you succeed. I want to see you take action. So go do it.
Boom. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you on the Bag Searches podcast next Wednesday. Going to be a nice live one. You're not going to want to miss it. Thanks, guys, so much.